Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. This is the raw reaction after a 4-1 defeat to Orlando City. I'm your host, Scotty. I will be joined in a minute by my co-host, Saur. Obviously, just a disaster of a performance, especially in the second half. I'm very interested to see what Saur has to say, if he'll join us here in a second. Man, that was tough to watch in the second half. That's weird. Something's going on here with StreamYard. I want to let you speak first because I don't want to be the first one to talk about this.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the next episode. We'll be back with a post-game analysis of this game, and hopefully we have some more thoughts after we come back. It's been a pleasure. See you in the next one. I'm out. I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. It was bad. Orlando was the better team by far in every aspect of this game. They had more than 21 shots on our goal. On any other day, this could have easily been 6-7. It wasn't any different from what we had at Chase Stadium. Very similar to how the game played out. The back line, really bad. Really, really bad. We pushed our right back and left back up all the way. Nobody to cover for them. If you do that, you need your forwards to score, and the forwards didn't even show up. So the only good thing about this game was the fact that Yannick Bright got his first goal for Inter Miami. So congratulations to him. But unfortunately, that was in the worst possible scenario. Orlando absolutely outplayed us. Every single one of their player was better than every single one of Inter Miami's player. We made Luis Muriel look like prime Ronaldo R9. And they dominated us. They deserved the win. And that's all. I'm quite disgusted by the display. It just felt so heartless, and yeah, we're gonna have to give them the bragging rights for this season. They've done the double on us, so, and honestly tanked us both times.
I got a real stomach ache right before I made my score prediction. I take full responsibility. I made fun of Luis Muriel in the pregame show, and he was awesome tonight. Here's what I want to say. I get very critical of the team and individual performances when they win or when it's very close, because I think that's when the margins can make such a difference. And if you can focus on improving 1%, 2%, 3%, you can really start to turn those close results into good results or good results into great results. This was just a butt whooping. And I will be honest, my instinct after this is to sort of like bring everyone together and just give everyone a group hug, and then get back to it tomorrow, watch the film, and kind of go through everything. So I don't have fire and brimstone right now. I don't know if calm is the right word, but I am sort of looking for silver linings. I don't want to just be either pissy or whiny or fake in what we're saying or overly angry in criticism or lashing out at certain players or the coach or whatever. I want us to be like a normal raw reaction. And so I want to go through individual aspects of the game and try and talk about it. And also, this is the raw reaction, so we're going to go where the chat sends us. Here are my silver linings. And maybe I just want to get the good things out of the way so that we can get to the chat and start focusing on some of the negatives. I thought Yannick Bright played exceptionally well for 60 minutes. And then with the rest of the team, I thought his level dropped off a little bit. But not only did he score a goal, but I thought he was like exceptional. Doing everything he always does defensively, but was really a factor in getting the ball forward, pressing high, and then obviously had that goal, had another pass that could have turned into something. So I thought Yannick Bright was exceptional. Level dropped a little bit in the last 30 minutes as the team sort of fell off. I thought Ian Frey defensively had some really nice moments in one-on-one situations against Angulo. Certainly, he was leaving a lot of space behind, as planned. Like that was the game plan. But he did have a couple moments where he chased down Angulo, and that's not something we've seen from our right back a lot lately. And is that it? No. I have one more. I thought in the last 20 minutes we put Busquets on the back line and had a back three. We were able to stem the tide a little bit, and it got a little ugly again in the last 8 minutes. So I want to I'm interested in that as a potential possibility, and so I want to watch that closer and see what happened there. But we did go to a back three with Busquets in the middle. But I think you nailed it. I think the offense just didn't show up. I thought Rodrigo de Paul was really poor. Suarez was poor. Today Allende is exactly what he's been for the last 6 weeks, 5 weeks, however long it's been. I mean, it's just getting worse and worse, and I feel bad. It's not like a frustration or an anger. It's just I feel bad because you're going out there and people are getting upset with you and you're making mistakes, and you are making mistakes. You are playing poor. Your confidence is in the mud. I'm sure he's hearing about it on social media. I'm sure that people are telling his family that he's playing terribly. And it's like it gets to a point where you just start feeling bad for them. And there's nothing – clearly they don't have the capacity to pull themselves out of it. Jordi Alba I thought was poor in this game. Maxi Falcone. This is where this is the only thing I really want to sit on for a minute before we get to the chat. They intentionally played a style where the fullbacks were going to play really high, especially Ian Frey on that right side. That was intentional, clearly. And Maxi Falcone was doing this thing where he was just giving so much space to that right side in behind him that I just think he didn't understand the game plan. There was clearly some lack of communication about the structure of the defense. So Maxi Falcone comes away looking really terrible for his positioning. I don't know why he was seemingly always in the wrong place, but I think there has to be some instructional reason because he was doing it moment after moment after moment. So I'm very interested to see what the heck was going on with Maxi Falcone because I thought he was terrible at first, but it just kept being the same mistake over and over and over again that I don't know why that was happening. And the last 30 minutes are a blur to me. I have no comment.
I do want to preface this. I want to contextualize this conversation because from that game, and of course I need to rewatch it to get to the nuance of it, I don't think it was an instructional issue. I don't have a problem with this Inter Miami team pushing up and playing that high up. That's fine. What I really found disappointing was the players weren't able to compete with the Orlando players. Maxi Falcone, you mentioned that a lot of his issues were leaving spaces in behind. He was getting bullied by Muriel physically. It didn't look like they were competing physically, not getting to the second balls, sloppy passes. We barely put together any combinations. It was like we were a shell of ourselves as a team. We were afraid to play. So it's not really on the coach. You can't blame Javier Marciano for, I think he put out the right starting 11. Yes, we can talk about the tactics and how he may have had to adjust depending on how Orlando came out. But they just looked like the better players on the pitch. They were competing. They were ferocious. They were constantly, their pressing was all on board. They played like a full cohesive unit that really, I think, disrupted anything this Inter Miami team would have put out, regardless of what formation you play, regardless of what. Even when we switched up to a back three with Sergio Busquets, we conceded a goal. It was more than just a tactical thing. I think for me, it was a competitive aspect of it where the players just had so many issues in connecting and passing and all of that. So for me, it was an issue. We can still see you on the screen, by the way, Scotty. I think it's just your internet that lags out a little bit, but
okay.
Just wanted
throwing me off.
to flag that for you.
Okay, let's get to the chat. Tony says, first subpar match for Rodrigo de Paul. He ghosted Rocco over Ustari, and what was Falcone doing? I mean, Three great conversations right off the bat. I didn't know Rodrigo de Paul could play that poorly. I was hoping that wasn't in his locker, and it was absolutely in his locker tonight. I agree completely. He ghosted. And then I talked about Falcone. I mean, it's just a nightmare game from Falcone, and he's going to get a lot of the blame. And I want to rewatch the game to decide how much of it is his fault. Is it 70% or is it 110%? I'll be interested in seeing that. Okay, Ustari. He's coming back from injury. Had terrible moments in this game. Also had some nice saves. I feel bad judging him because I've said a lot of things about the Drake Ustari thing. And I am generally one to give players a little bit of lax when they're coming back from injury. So I'm going to let you talk about Oscar Ustari.
We selected two individuals as circle the lineup, players that we're concerned about. You selected Maxi Falcone, already spoken about him. Probably the worst player on the pitch for me. We'll reanalyze to see what the issues were, but I didn't think he was particularly good. Oscar Ustari was the second worst player on the pitch for me. So we both picked the two players that were very, very bad. Just wasn't in it the entire game. His head was just gone. He had some sweeping moments that he passed the ball straight to the Orlando player off his line. Could have easily got caught out twice, not once, twice. And they should have scored on that both times. He was very much culpable for that third goal, which again killed the game exactly the same way it happened last time. It's really disappointing that you say you have a goalkeeper in Drake Callender who's worse than Ustari, according to you, who's worse than Rocco Rios Noah, according to you. But Ustari, in the moments that matter, has had some really poor moments. If you say Drake Callender has had a catalogue of 5 poor saves, I can put out a catalogue of Ustari's 5 poor moments in this season as well. So you got to reanalyze that situation. I don't know. You can cut him some slack because he's just coming back from an injury, but he cost us the game as much as any other player on that pitch, as much as the defenders. I think more so than anyone else, because he was culpable for that third goal, which for me completely killed off the game. And he could have been truly embarrassed tonight if not for Luis Muriel's misses and hitting the post.
Wednesday night, we're going to do a midweek episode, and I've already been planning to dedicate 20 minutes to a conversation about Drake and Ustari. Drake's probably going to get traded in the next week and a half.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about that in more detail. So I don't want to get into a Drake versus Ustari comparison here. He did have some nice saves, but you're right. As a goalkeeper, you don't get to make mistakes. I thought all 3 of the first 3 goals he should have done better on. You're right. He had a couple of really poor moments that could have turned into more goals. That 4th one, I wouldn't put on him. He actually makes a nice save on a one-on-one situation. And then Pasalic rounds the keeper and just puts in the far post. Like, I wouldn't blame him for that one. But the first 3, he didn't really make himself big. Especially that 3rd one was really poor. But even the first 2, like, I thought he stayed small, was slow to react, didn't get big, it just wasn't a good goalkeeping. And then you mentioned he had the moment where he kicks it straight to Luis Muriel and gets absolutely bailed out by a ball that just, it's like 2 degrees trailing towards the post. It hits the post, and it doesn't turn into a goal. So we will talk about Ustari a lot more this week. Raymond says a trophyless season. Again,
we still have the Leagues Cup, and we might just get embarrassed by Orlando in the Leagues Cup semifinals.
We might play. Orlando City might be in our way.
Yeah.
No, I think one of the things that makes this disappointing is because this was there. It's like so often this season, and they got bailed out by Messi, who had great games, and they got bailed out by a last-minute challenge, a last-man challenge by Aviles, or a goal line stop by Maxi Falcone. But like, this type of performance has been on the verge of happening so often this year, and they get away with it. But that's why we complain all the time, because it's like, fix it so that this never happens, especially in the big moments. I don't know if this just cost them the supporter shield. I get people are going to say it doesn't matter. I personally disagree, but that's fine. We're allowed to disagree. You get 4 chances at a trophy every season. I guess 5 if you count the Club World Cup. And they're striking out, right? 3 strikes now on if the supporter shield's really over. I don't want to say it's over. I want to look at the rest of the table. I think most of the results the rest of the way this weekend went our way. So we'll see. But like, this was not a good sign for, oh, this is your chance to prove yourself without Lionel Messi.
And it's also so interesting because every time, so the USP for this team last season was when they came up against difficult odds, when they came up against a team that we thought, this is going to be hard to beat. They always came out on top and won that game and showed heart and showed grit and showed determination. This season, every single time we faced adversity or an opposition that's like slightly better than us, where it's difficult for us to win, we've capitulated. And tonight we capitulated as well. And it was slightly worse than the examples that you just gave where we got bailed out by one player or another. Tonight I thought it was less the coaching, because earlier you could blame the coaching and the tactics. Tonight, I thought it was more the performances than anything else. Yes, there's an element of how we played the game, what the tactics were, but it was just, there was no heart. There was no determination. There was no fight, as Upcode says. It was just flat. And we felt dominated. That was the issue. It felt like the players from Orlando were physically dominating into Miami on the pitch. And it felt like boys versus men. That's what I think my initial assumption of this game is.
I actually don't have like real major criticisms of Javier Mascherano today.
Exactly.
I wonder how much of the game falling away and that lack of fight came because a few moments in that first half didn't go our way. Like, I'm thinking about a ball through to Allende that he can't even carry. Like, it's not that he shoots it, he misses the shot, or that he takes one last touch too hard or whatever. Like, he can't even pick the ball up. He just loses it under his feet as he's in a full sprint. And like, if you see that, it's how disheartening is that. Orlando City came out in the second half. I thought it was particularly stark. Like, right out of the gates in the first half, they just decided we're going to control this game. And Inter Miami was never back in it from that point on. They get the goal in the 50th minute. It was the 58th minute. Martin Ojeda shot to the near post that Ustari should have saved. That really ended the game. But even that 15-minute period, it was like, okay, maybe if Inter Miami survives this, they can get some initiative and try and win it back. But they never looked like they were taking the initiative back. And obviously, by the time they get that third goal, it's over. JC says, RDP plus Frey and Bright starting, and we still lose. Also, Fafa subbed in for Segovia, not Allende, and Lujan over Toto, Cello, etc. Tata would have scored 5 goals every game with this squad. I thought Ian Frey and Yannick Bright were our 2 best players. I'll be honest with you. Not that, I don't think Ian Frey was like particularly great.
Yeah.
Lujan came in over Toto. I thought Lujan was an upgrade over what we were putting out there with Maxi Falcone.
He had that one run straight to the other side of the pitch and then gave the ball away on the side on the corner flag, and I was like, nice. Well, at least he did more than that.
Hey, like I said, an improvement over Maxi Falcone. And then JC says Tata would have had this team scoring 5 goals every game. And Raymond says, I hated Tata Martino, but now I completely regret that he left. You shouldn't regret that Tata left. Like, you should regret the fact that Inter Miami replaced him with a coach who had never coached before with this super team. I mean, that, like, in retrospect, it's just ludicrous that that decision was made. Just unbelievable. Tony says just because Mascherano is bad doesn't mean Tata was good, and I think there's probably some truth to that, although clearly there are levels to this, and Tata was much higher on the rung. Natalia says the players on the pitch look like they've given up too. I think that goes to your point.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. After the second goal, it never really felt like Inter Miami was going to come back in this, did it? Did you at any point feel confident that we could okay, maybe we
Not in the second
thought
half.
and hoped, but it didn't feel like we were coming back into this game. Like Orlando always seemed in cruise control. So
I think that's doing it a little disservice in the first
maybe,
half. They had
yeah,
some chances in transition. They weren't good in the box, like RDP, Suarez, Segovia, Allende. Like they all had moments where they were maybe in a position to do something, but they took a terrible touch or had a bad turnover.
yeah,
But like you're like, okay, maybe that was just a bad touch, and you get another chance, you make something of it. But in the second half, I thought they were just dominated,
yeah.
at least for the first, until the 75th minute or whenever the game was actually over. Anonymous says Florida is purple. SD says Orlando is clearly superior. Man, it's such a terrible.
Purple's my least
color.
favorite color.
Tony says Noah Allen was horrible. What do you think of Noah?
I don't think he was the problem in that back line. That's all I'm going to put it.
I don't either.
I thought he was fine.
I thought he was like our third best player. I thought Maxi Falcone was just horrible. And I thought the other side of the defense played significantly better. Michael says Orlando shellacks Miami again. Gabriella, Noah was very poor, and so was DePaul. A lot of conversation about DePaul. Okay, let's stick on him for a second. When Messi first leaves, he looked like, oh, I can just step in for that, and it's no problem. We wanted to see him on the right. We got that to start this game. Doesn't really work. Doesn't look good. I thought part of that was maybe Allende fumbling a couple opportunities that he had early on. But he had a poor game. I don't think there's any other way to put it.
Yeah, and I think one thing he struggled with was he didn't have anybody to target the ball into, and he constantly kept putting the ball over the top of the Orlando defense to get it into our striker, to get it into Allende, to get it into Suarez. That for me was a big issue because he didn't have a target man. And then just generally as well, I thought he was one step behind the rest of the Orlando team, whether it was fatigue or whatever. We can talk about that, but I think it was more than that because everyone from our midfield looked one step behind, but he didn't have a particularly good game. And you can't expect him to do the same things as Messi, obviously, but still.
Well, it was just so promising the first couple games, and this was just
Yeah.
such an unbelievable drop-off. Sean says we need to have a serious conversation about Maxi and Ustadi. I think Maxi Falcone is going to be a huge topic of conversation tomorrow. But I just want to rewatch everything because it looks so bad from the first watch, but it was just the same mistakes over and over and over again that my brain is like, surely he couldn't have been doing that same mistake over and over and again. Like it had to have been something related to the structure of the defense. So I want to wait till I rewatch it because it was so bad. I can't believe one player would do that. But of course, Javier Mascherano took him out, so maybe he felt the same way. Upcoat says that was the worst loss all season. No, the other loss was worse. The other loss to Orlando City was worse.
No,
Probably
this was worst.
Maybe it's an individual performance, but that one was like the accumulation of just like 6 weeks of terrible.
Can you believe we lost to bloody Orlando City twice this season? Not just lose, we got absolutely drubbed. I can't believe it.
7 goals allowed to Orlando City this year by Ustadi.
Oh my God.
2 clean sheets from Drake Callender last year against Orlando City. Not saying, I'm just saying.
Dude, the highlights are playing on my TV right now, and Muriel is absolutely dominating us.
Raymond says this is a preview of what's about to happen in the Leagues Cup against Tigres. We were just starting to feel good about Inter Miami too. What a reality check.
You know, I said it in the pregame show that even if we do lose, we always tend to overhype the significance of a result and how it might pan out in the grand scheme of things. And Inter Miami tends to recover well from these moments. Right now, I don't feel that way. Right now, I think we're in the depths of absolute hell. It's terrible. And I don't like it. I like being in the Club World Cup. I like playing against Al Ahly every week. I preferred when we were going up against Palmeiras, when we were going up against Porto, and we were beating them, and it was great. Bring back those days.
I will just say our last worst loss of the season was a couple weeks ago against Cincinnati at TQL Stadium. We lost 3-0. We won the following game 3 days later against the Red Bulls 5-1. So we'll see.
Yeah.
SD says same as Tony says Alba horrible deference. I'm assuming that's defense. I can excuse him being meh defensively if he's good offensively, but he was like non-factor offensively for much of this game. But I also thought that side of the defense held up much better than the other side. So I don't know what you think about Jordi Alba.
It was interesting because that side of the defense was actually the one that I was concerned about with Freeman and Basilic. But it was the other side, Angulo again. Like, he had burners on and was really troubling Maxi Falcone, of course, Ian Frey as well. I didn't think Alba was particularly influential in this game. Did not venture out as far as Ian Frey, which is interesting. He had to be the one to create something for this team, but just did not have it in him. It feels like all 11 players were very poor, except Yannick Bright, who I thought had a really good game. So that makes me think it wasn't just the coaching or the tactics or anything else. It was just how we played this game. And sometimes you have those one-offs, I guess. Unfortunate it's against our rivals.
Yeah. No, I want to give Gonzalo Lujan credit. He was maybe our third or fourth best player in this game. Sammy says, bring Rocco back. How close are we to just admitting the Rocco inners were right the whole time?
I mean, I'm already there. The Rocco inners were right the whole time. Ustari did not play well, so of course Rocco Rios Nova deserved to start.
Tony says it's always the defense that's trash.
Yeah, we need a center back.
This was just a failure on all fronts. Just a failure on all fronts. Like, everyone played poorly. The goalkeeping was bad. The defense was bad. The midfield wasn't good. The front line was awful. So, and I do want to say this.
Strikers didn't play well.
I do want to say
the right
this.
back, the left back were awful. Yeah, sorry.
Javier Mascherano put out a more offensive-minded lineup. He clearly wanted to get players on there that could score goals. And the offense was terrible. Like, Suarez, terrible. Paul, even worse. Allende, I'm not even going to say anything. I just feel bad. Segovia was a non-factor. Jordi Alba was a non-factor. How much of this is on them? Because if you get a goal, right, you change the momentum, right? It just, I don't want to just blame the defense because they were horrible, but the offense was just as bad.
And here's the thing, right? If you say that Javier Mascherano picked the wrong tactics, he should have gone slightly more conservative. No. We've constantly blamed Javier Mascherano for being conservative and being defensive. And then when he's actually going out to chase the game and actually play on the front foot, we can't take our words back and blame him for doing that. So I have no problem. Absolutely.
I'm saying the players didn't show up.
Exactly.
Like, I defend Suarez a lot because I do think some of the things people say about him are actually not, like, they're just over the top and they're just trying to feed a narrative. But like, he was really poor in this game. Aside from like the one moment, and I was thinking as he shoots that ball from halfway, I was like, this is the actual moment where he's terrible for 89 minutes, and then he has that one moment.
But yeah, for anyone who comes out and says Javier Mascherano should have done differently, I would disagree with you because you're absolutely right. It was the forward line that didn't do enough. I think DePaul was poor, but when we rewatched that game, we'll realize that he didn't have many options. There was no movement. There was no dynamism. Segovia and him had some really good patterns for like 30 seconds in the first half, and then it never happened again. And I was like, why is this not happening? Segovia was lost too. Rodrigo de Paul was lost as well. I thought Sergio Busquets was slowish, but not the biggest issue. But yeah, it was nobody showed up, man. Nobody showed up, and that's what happens.
Showed up for 5 glorious minutes.
Yeah.
Should we just talk about how beautiful that volley was? Anthony says, "Yeah, it was." Anthony says, "Why was Kramaski play as a right back?" This is something we've talked about Cello dealing with something. He was available on the bench today, but again, if he is dealing with something, You want to take Ian Frey out. You want to get subs on because there's no reason not to give guys a couple minutes. Cello, not one of the people that came on. Like I do wonder if this goes back to he's been overused. He maybe dealing with something. There's no reason to play him in this type of game. And if you're going to take Ian Frey out, which I think also makes sense, throw Kramaski in there instead. I do wonder if this is maybe like a little confirmation that Cello is exhausted and or fatigue, muscle fatigue or whatever.
I think he is. Otherwise, Javi Mascherano wouldn't start Ian Frey in this game. 100%.
Nader says, watch Mascherano in the press conference say the team didn't play that bad.
I'm trying to look for quotes from him, but they haven't come out yet.
Anton says, I started watching in the second half and I feel dumbfounded. It was worse in the second
Oh,
half.
wow. So Javi Mascherano had a brief press conference where he said that the intensity was not there for Inter Miami and that was unacceptable. He took the blame for the loss and said there was only one team on the pitch tonight. Listen, he said it. At least he noticed it, so good for him.
Tarn says, why is Mash starting a goalkeeper who's not fit? We can see that from that third goal by the way that third goal is a disgrace. He didn't look not fit to me. He looked like he was maybe in bad form, like he was making some mental mistakes, but he wasn't getting down. He had a hamstring injury. That's not preventing him from getting down.
What
quickly.
does it mean
He's
for
never
a
been good.
goalkeeper to be fit, right? Because they don't have to do much of the running. Of course, you need to have a basic level of fitness, but he seemed fine. He had some couple of good saves, but then the others were not, reactive or instinctive. I think it had more to do with him not being sharp enough to stop the goals and just not being reactive enough in certain positions when you just pass the ball back to Orlando.
Yeah. SD says probably Leagues Cup fatigue, even though both teams advanced. Miami seemed tired and predictable. I don't even know if predictable is the right word. They just had nothing offensively except shooting through balls to Allende and Suarez.
Exactly. And all the through balls were short. They were intercepted by the Orlando players, and there was no wing play when there should have been more wing play. Now we're starting to realize the tactical issues, but yeah.
Yeah, no, well, we'll get to that tomorrow. Upcode said we had no second balls, no duels won, and we just looked asleep, except from
Exactly.
Yannick Bright. That's absolutely true. No, again, I thought Yannick Bright played
absolutely.
really, really well for 60
No,
minutes.
you're right.
Real Deal says, what happened? Nobody showed up. JC says, the heron that flew north is going to become the flock that flew north.
Actually, that's a good award. We should do that.
Upcode says, I feel sad.
I feel sad too, Upcode. I feel sad too.
Anton says, the starting 11 was not the problem, right? I think the starting 11 was not something we complained about in the pregame show, and I thought it was an improvement compared to what we've seen a lot lately from Javier Mascherano, and I don't want to back off of that. Clearly, in hindsight, retrospectively, hindsight's 2020. Maxi Falcone was not going to play a good game, and if you knew that, you wouldn't have started Maxi Falcone. Oscar Stardi, certainly, if you knew that was going to happen, you would have played Rocco, but that's all.
No, team
hindsight.
selection was fine. When we first saw the team selection, we were happy with it. So
Henry says how bad the team looks without Messi.
quite bad. 4-1 bad.
I don't think Messi changes this game at all.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. I was going to say the same thing. I don't think he changes anything.
Anton says the substitutions didn't help. I will say, after the second goal in the first half, Orlando City came out, was dominating the game in the second half. They score a goal right away. I thought the substitution should have come 51st minute, 52nd minute, right after that first goal. There were no subs, and in the 58th minute, Orlando gets the third goal, and the game was over at that point. I think I was in my head trying to plan what subs I would have made. Not sure I would have gotten out in time, but I think there was probably room to try and change the game, at least the momentum of the game, even if it's just to slow it down and try and keep some composure right after Orlando City scored that second goal.
Yeah.
Sean says, I don't know, the whole midfield got lost all game. Both side mids just got bypassed. Jan says this is one of those losses where it's more on the players than the coaching. I agree with that entirely. Upcode, the high press just messed up in the first 75% of the game.
They were pressing very high. I was very surprised. It wasn't a mid block. It was a full high pressing.
They weren't pressing effectively. Like, I don't think they won a single ball in the opposition half.
Yeah.
So something.
But they were creating issues though. They were winning the ball in the middle of the park because Inter Miami was then trying to just boot it long. It was working.
Oh, are you talking about Orlando City?
Yeah. That's what I mean.
I was talking about Inter Miami.
Oh, Inter Miami was terrible.
That's what I'm saying. Anonymous says Rocco should be number one. Ustari did have a couple good saves. He did have a couple good saves, but if you're a goalkeeper, you have to be perfect. Like, that's the standard, right? Defenders don't really get to make mistakes. Midfielders really want to limit mistakes. Attackers get to make mistakes all the time if they score goals. Goalkeepers have to be perfect. That's the standard. And so he did make some nice saves that I think also showed he wasn't injured. But also, like, he let in 3 goals and probably deserved to let in 5. Yeah. Or sorry, he was responsible for 3 goals, or should have done better, and had another 1 or 2 that were like on him. Ash says, what tactical and formation changes can be made to maximize our players? And Sean says, the 3-5-2 is our best formation with Boosie doing what he did last year. One of my silver linings is that Javier Mascherano went to a back 3 with Busquets on the back line. I want to rewatch the game before I comment on the effectiveness of it, but I still have a dream, and it involves a back 3 with Busquets in the middle.
You're never seeing it again for the rest of the season.
Hey, they shut him down. Well, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, let's come back to that one. That was funny.
Jay says, I hear we are letting go of Drake Callender. Seems about right. This team is solid in goalkeeper with a
I think Jay's being sarcastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're going to do something on Wednesday about the Drake Callender situation. They're going to trade him. And by the way, they gave Ustari one of the richest goalkeeping contracts in the MLS in the offseason. And they've already signed him to next year. So they committed to Ustari in January before Drake had ever had an injury. Like, they decided Drake wasn't going to be their guy in the offseason. And my real problem with that is Ustari had not been a starter for 18 months. Like, he had played like 15 games in 18 months prior to signing that contract. Obviously, he knows Messi. He also knows Javier Mascherano from the Argentine national team. So, like, it feels like it's just gross. And if Ustari was on a $250,000 contract, this would all feel much, much better. But it's gross.
Full podcast coming on that.
Yeah. Bizrat says, a lot to learn from this game if the coaches sit down and analyze this game. Why is every ball over the top results one-on-one with Ustari? Why do they lose concentration and be lackluster? You know, Saur, let me ask you, because I actually feel like these are the type of games where you can take away less because everything went against you. And when things are going solid or good or even really good, like, you can tweak things to try and make them better. But when it's a disaster like this, it's almost like...
Because there's no one variable, right? Everything is going wrong at the same time. So
there's
where
not even 6 variables. There's 27 problems in this game.
Where do you put the blame? Because you could say, oh, maybe because we played Ian Frey so high up, that's probably why we conceded. But then what do you do with Maxi Falcone not being able to compete with Luis Muriel? And then what do you say about Oscar Ustari letting in 2 easy goals? So there's just a whole bunch of problems. And I don't know how much we can put the blame on one thing.
Tiara says, why do we keep losing to this Orlando team? Let's hope a revenge in Leagues Cup semifinal. Are they going to be this year's Atlanta?
You know what it is? When you have a little brother who wants to play PlayStation with you and you don't want to make them feel bad about themselves, so you let them win a couple of times on FIFA. That's what this is. We're letting them win a couple of times, but when it actually matters in the Leagues Cup or the playoffs, I really hope we can win. But I don't think we will. They have our number, man. They know how to beat us. We're absolutely terrible against Orlando.
No, I think we would have been better if we had played David Ruiz and Kermaski and like some of our fighters You know, some of the guys that are going to go get it, mix it up, and make it really difficult. And then you bring on, like, someone in the second half. Again, the last 3 games we've played against them,
we're dumped against them. They're absolutely better than us.
All right, sorry. I know you got to get up for work tomorrow to go save the planet and save some time to watch the game before we do the post-game
it's Monday. Tomorrow. It gets worse. It's Monday tomorrow.
Can I just say?
I was thinking it's Saturday.
Let me ask you how you feel about this. For the first half, I was having fun. I was like, this is a fun rivalry game, and it feels special on a Sunday night. And then it got real not fun, real not fast in the second half. No. Okay, we're going to call the raw reaction there. I will stay for the after party. If you're wondering what the heck that is and you're listening on audio, you can come check it out on YouTube. I'm just going to stick with the chat for a while and have some fun. But Saur, any final words before we let you go?
Yeah, there's one silver lining. The Drive Ping Dialogue is 21 subscribers away from reaching 1,000. So guys, please do us a favor. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. It means a lot. It's been an absolute pleasure to have every single one of you in the chat. And as you can tell, we continue to extend the post-game reactions because all of you are in the chat sharing your thoughts with us, and it's absolutely fantastic. So continue to do that, and we can't wait to finally celebrate that momentous occasion. But until then, it's been a pleasure.
All right. See you guys in a minute. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day. Okay, let's keep going. As always, for those that haven't seen this yet, we get so many comments in the chat section, and I love reading them and I love interacting with them. And Saur has real responsibilities to go out there and build wells for the indigenous people in the Amazon or something. I don't know what he does. Something about saving the world. Is it Aboriginals? I don't know. In Australia, maybe. I don't know. But anyways, I love interacting with you guys, and I really hate to end the stream without going over some of your chats. So I'm going to stick around. If you guys have more things you want to talk about, throw it in the chat. It doesn't necessarily have to be about this game. We can just kind of have fun. I want to start with this, though. For those that know Battery Traveler, IMCF Traveler on X, he tweets out, if any of you come into my mentions and say Ustari's an upgrade, we're fighting at Chase Stadium. And then he tweeted it. This is a legit offer. It's in the green lot next MLS home game. So if anyone wants to fight IMCF Traveler, just talk to him about Ustari. Okay, Sean says, Maxi only knows how to guard the person closest to him. Maxi doesn't understand zonal spacing. Yeah, Falcone was just something else in this game. It was like really hard to understand because it was really poor. And not a technical deficiency, just an awareness, a lack of awareness, just letting guys get angles on him, letting guys create space away from him, and then just not having any chance of recovering. Crazy. JC says the heron that flew north is the falcon that flew north. Tiara says, if we lose this Leagues Cup match, then Coach Mascherano must leave. Listen, Javier Mascherano, he's not going to get fired before the end of the season. There's no doubt about that. He is, I think, in the eyes of the front office, done enough to keep his job for the rest of the season. And I think if there was ever a chance for that to happen, it was going to be either right before or right after the Club World Cup. We're going to ride it out with him, mostly because there's a new coach. It would be unfair to ask them to take this team and win the MLS Cup with them if he only has 10, 12 games to get used to them and stuff. So they're going to ride it out with Mascherano, and hopefully the sort of connections he had that helped him get this job don't help him keep the job if he doesn't have the trophies to back it up. No one says so many turnovers. Bizrat says we lost almost every 50-50 ball. Tarn says Mascherano should have told them before to just sit back and counter. That's what the game plan should have been. It's tough, man, because if you play that style consistently, you're asking Luis Suarez to be athletic on the counter. It's tough. You're asking Tadeo Allende to be effective on the counter. It's really tough. He decided to go with a more comprehensive offensive game plan, and I don't hate the idea. It's just the execution was really poor, and the players, like a lot of those players, have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, what just happened there? And they will in the film room. Like Rodrigo De Paul is going to bounce back. I still think Tadeo Allende needs to get a week or two on the bench to help his confidence, to help him regain his confidence, to make him feel like he earned his starting job back. I don't even know what to say about Maxi Falcone. Ash says we need to have an intervention from the board to have a heart-to-heart with Mascherano. Do we need to have an intervention? I think it's when Messi comes back, does the team respond? And maybe that's a part of it. It's not an excuse for this performance, but like if you're struggling physically, you're struggling to win balls, you're struggling to make those extra runs, you're struggling to body off players, if you're getting out physical, and you're just missing that like oomph and desire, maybe Lionel Messi coming back like provides that for you, and it's like a catalyst and a spark, and he gets you a goal or two, and you start feeling good about yourself. You think you're going to win, and that gives you a little extra energy and a little extra boost. Like I do think this game doesn't mean the team is in real trouble for the rest of the season, but certainly it's not a good sign for how much, if Messi was gone for any significant games. Again, I think Messi won't play against the LA Galaxy this weekend or this upcoming weekend, but I think he'll play against Tigres on the following Wednesday. Real Deal says, why did we switch the goalkeepers? Taran says, we need a good goalkeeper, not an aging goalkeeper. Nolan says, why did we put Ustari straight in after the injury? Listen, guys, I can't. Ustari is clearly a better goalkeeper than Rocco. Rocco has had some really nice games in the League's Cup, but Ustari's earned the right to be ahead of him if he's healthy, and he came back and said he was healthy. And by the way, I didn't think he looked unhealthy today. I think he just was poor. He had enough saves. He made a couple runs, did a little bit of sweeping that showed the hamstring wasn't bothering him. And so if you want to blame it on like rustiness and he's not, he's out of form because he hasn't played in a couple weeks, like I'll buy that. But he didn't look injured to me. And then again, like you have to put him back in at some point because he's going to be your starting goalkeeper. Again, they paid him one of the biggest goalkeeping contracts in the MLS. Ash says, I think we need to play simpler, more direct football until we get our groove back. Dapty says, total meltdown. The problem is, Inter Miami needs to win the League's Cup. That's priority number one. But I think priority number two is to make sure you're firing on all cylinders going into the playoffs. And that means figuring out who are your best players, figuring out, and by figuring out who are the best players, not just who the coach thinks are, but who are actually your best players. I think Javier Mascherano thinks his three best center backs are Noah Allen, Gonzalo Lujan, and Maxi Falcone. And I really don't know what the argument is for Falcone or Lujan to be considered one of the best defenders. I will say he recruited them to come to Inter Miami, and I'm sure he made promises to them about playing time for them to come. But like that's the only explanation that makes sense in my head because he was a defender. He knows some of the mistakes these guys are making consistently. But I mean, he's never been a club coach before. He shouldn't have the ability to make those types of promises. And also, he shouldn't have had the ability to recruit players he wanted. Like, that was just, like, in retrospect, it's just so easy to tell where everything went wrong with that winter window. Almost everyone that's connected to Javier Mascherano ended up being less than the price of admission. Telasco Segovia, obviously a great exception, but Lujan, certainly not worth the money. Baltasar Rodriguez, I don't want to say anything bad about him because he's been injured. But, and even Oscar Ustari, this is a guy who's been friends with and has known Javier Mascherano for 15 years. And Somehow he got, despite not being a starting goalkeeper, really, for 18 months, he got one of the richest goalkeeping contracts in the MLS. But he knows Messi and Javier Mascherano. Gabriel says, without Ustari, it would have easily been 10 goals past us, though. Upcode says Ustari had a few great saves and lost 2 of those goals. Listen, I thought Ustari could have done better on all 3 of the first 3 goals. He also gave up a goal that Muriel couldn't put in the back of the net. And I thought that third goal was just you just can't do that at this level. Or, I mean, obviously it happens, but you deserve to be rightly ridiculed. Nader says, Rocco, we needed Rocco today. Man, he's been so good. It's crazy that we ended up at this position. Sean says, remember the 2 moments Drake single-handedly won us trophies? The way people talk about Drake Callender that wanted to move him on is crazy. He was and is a good MLS goalkeeper. And if you wanted to try and go get a great one, I totally understand that. I can respect it. But again, Oscar Ustari had not been a starting goalkeeper for 18 months prior to signing one of the richest goalkeeping contracts in the MLS. So if you're not going to get a real genuine upgrade, then you stick with Drake. And they went in the offseason. I remember they were connected to players, goalkeepers. There's Nawel, I can't remember his last name. But like they wanted goalkeepers and they couldn't get any of them. So they settled for Ustari. And it's like, you should settle for the guy that's already on a team-friendly contract and proven he's good if you can't get a real, genuine upgrade. And they went with Ustari. The whole thing is just crazy. Tarn says, bring Emi Martinez. Yeah, I don't think we have a DP spot open to pay Aston Villa $30 million. But I will tell you what, I didn't expect them to get Rodrigo de Paul either, so who knows. Upcode says that high press kept the ball in our half for like 40 minutes in the first half. I get that, but also they had players dispersed up the field, and they were, at least at times, able to get them the ball, and they just turned it over. DePaul turned it over way too many times. Allende, I don't want to get started on. Suarez, I don't want to get started on. It's not like we just couldn't play the ball out from the back. They did slip it through and got forward a number of times that could have turned into something if the players at the top of the field were able to convert them into real chances. But they just fumbled every single one of them. So I just... Nick Smith says our only second half chance was a kick from midfield. Oh, that's probably true, isn't it? Natalia says, are we really not getting any more players before the transfer window ends? I don't think you should expect to. Not saying for sure it won't happen, but I think it's probably a 60% chance it's not going to happen, which means there's a 40% chance it happens. I think if they had someone in mind and were on the verge of a deal, they would just do it. You're running out of games. There's no reason to not bring them in. You're running out of time. I think they're at the point where they're just trying to see if there's any available options, and if they can find one, they'll pull the trigger on it. But I don't think they have one right now. So it is what it is. Pizrat says, imagine a playoff with this Orlando team. Yeah. JC says, with the exception of tossing Lujan Allende out, we can't transfer a window our way out of this hole. I do want to adding Rodrigo de Paul can be the catalyst to transform the way you play soccer. And and maybe I'm forcing this in my own brain, but I'm seeing a couple signs that maybe Javier Mascherano is willing to approach the idea. I wasn't sure that we were going to get Rodrigo de Paul out wide. I thought it might just be de Paul and Busquets in the midfield every single game for the rest of their careers, really. He has put de Paul out wide. He did give Yannick Bright a chance, and I think that's a great start. Today we saw Busquets in the back line and a back three for 15 minutes. There's a way you can transform this team with the players on the field that can solve a lot of your issues. And we'll see if they try any of them. Sean says, remember when we had trouble against CONCACAF Minnow Cavalier? I'll be honest, I very much enjoyed Cavalier, researching them and learning about some of their players. So maybe I was just too high on vibes back then to pay attention. And I think the other thing was we were still bringing in players. Right? Maxi Falcone, I think, made his first start against Cavalier in Jamaica. Lujan still hadn't really been a part of the team. Obando, Baltasar, like it still felt like a team coming together. But when you look at how they played against LAFC and Vancouver in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, you could see they had nothing, just nothing for it. Well, obviously at home in LAFC they had one mighty comeback in them, but for the other 3 games of that 4-game set, it was really poor. Tarn says we're bringing midfielders and defenders when we are down 3-1. That's the lack of depth in the attack. Just want to look at our bench. Yeah, listen, the guys he didn't bring on were Cello, Aviles, and David Ruiz. But, you know, Baltasar, I think, is supposed to be an attacking midfielder, Fafa Picault. It's not a lack of depth. They just played really poorly today. Natalia says Saur is right. There was no heart, and the players gave up. No fight either. And Ash says no heart, no brains. Anton says, whose fault is this? Everyone. Except Yannick Bright. I was telling Saur, I know this game was a disaster, and so maybe this isn't really the right time to go over this. But last game I said Yannick Bright was fine. I didn't really compliment him too much. And a lot of you guys in the chat were like, no, Yannick Bright was fantastic. And I just saw some turnovers that I was like, I don't know if I love that. And then tonight, he gets the goal. He was progressing the ball in a much more efficient way. Like, if the rest of the team was playing well around him, I think he would have had an unbelievably impactful performance. I thought it may have been his best game of the season, really. But that's it, man. No one else. I think a little bit to Ian Frey, but situational. CV says this was all Mascherano's fault with the subs, especially putting Kramaski as a right back. But this could just be a sign of a really bad loss. And then Miami wins the MLS and Leagues Cup. Laughing emoji. Yeah, I think the game was over by the time any of the subs came on. He brings the first subs on in the 64th minute. It's 3-1. And Miami did not look like they were, well, as Nick said, the only chance they had in the second half was from the halfway line. Bizrest says Miami were not attacking, and yet center backs were 20 or 30 yards off their goal. It was so confusing. Again, like I really think the back line in the midfield provided that front line at DePaul and Suarez and Segovia and Allende opportunities to create offense, and they just flubbed them every single time. Maybe that's something I'm going to do on the rewatch, is just count how many times we actually pushed through their press and our front line just completely fumbled the opportunity. It felt like it just happened every single time, at least in the first half. In the second half, it was a real struggle. But you know, once you go down 3-1, you're getting physically dominated. That sort of thing tends to happen. Marina says, why would we replace Rios with Ustari, who is returning from injury? Rios was in rhythm. When an injured player returns, he is reintroduced gradually. I blame Mascherano for the switch. Our players were tired. Listen, it's not, you don't bring a player back gradually if they're the goalkeeper. You only play one goalkeeper. And Ustari has, I think, in Mascherano's eyes, clearly been the number one goalkeeper and deserved the right to come back when he felt healthy. So I don't have a problem with the decision. Obviously, hindsight's 20/20. You would have loved to have Rocco in goal, but not something I would have thought I would say. Tarn says Orlando should have had 9 goals. So many missed chances by Orlando. I don't know about 9, but probably like 6 or 7. Call me Rafi says Florida is purple. Yeah. Congratulations to Orlando City, by the way. They played awesome. I don't mean to be a poor sport, and so if I ever do, I apologize. But they were good. They were really good, and that includes some missed chances. Luis Muriel, I've never seen that from him ever. Like, he was really, really good. I don't even know what to say, man. They were awesome. Florida is purple. They won 7-1 over the course of 2 games, including a 3-0 blowout at Chase Stadium. And they looked physically and athletically dominant compared to us. Some talk about Tata Martino. Bizrat says everyone except Bright was bad. Mariner says, I keep going out of focus. I want you guys to know, behind the scenes, my screen just stops showing what it's supposed to show, and I'm just trusting that I'm staying on screen. So I really apologize if this is messing with your brain, because it's really messing with mine, but I'm just trying to power through and look at the chat. Natalia says Tata had Gressel, Campana, and Taylor to step up for him. Well, listen, Javier Mascherano could have had all those guys. Maybe not Campana, but he could have had Julian Gressel. He could have had Robert Taylor. And going back to that Oscar Ustari contract, the difference between Oscar Ustari's contract this year and last year was the difference in, you could have kept Robert Taylor for that price. The reason they have no offensive depth is because Javier Mascherano decided he didn't want offensive depth. He wants to play with a bunch of midfielders on the field. That's the style he likes. He doesn't want fancy wingers playing high up the field. He wants midfielders everywhere. He wants midfielders at winger. He wants midfielders at the number 10, the number 6, the number 8, at right back, at left back. He wants midfielders everywhere. And that's what we're getting. So, I get people are saying there's a lack of depth offensively, but that's by design. That's what Javier Mascherano wanted. Tarn says this is Inter Miami's reality if any opponent will play like this. It didn't look dissimilar against Cincinnati, I will say. How long ago was that? 3 weeks ago? We played Cincinnati at TQL Stadium and lost 3-0 on the 16th of July. That was 3.5 weeks ago. Tarn says, when Messi comes in, what's the starting 11? I can't tell you what Javier Mascherano would do. I can guess. And I'll guess real quick what Javier Mascherano would do. I think he'll put Rodrigo de Paul at that defensive midfield spot next to Busquets. He'll put Allende out right, Segovia on the left, Suarez and Messi up top. I can see him putting Ian Frey instead of Cello at right back. We will find out. Jordi Alba at left back, who's starting in goal, and probably Noah Allen and Gonzalo Lujan at center back would be my guess. What I would do, I will leave the goalkeeper out of this because I probably would go back to Drake, but Drake's going to be traded by the time any of this happens, so it becomes a moot point. I would go back 3 of Noah Allen at left center back, Busquets central center back, and Toto Avios at right side of center back, Jordi Alba left wing back, Ian Frey right wing back, midfield pivot of DePaul and Yannick Bright, and then Segovia and Lionel Messi as dual 10s, and then Suarez up top is what I would do. And I think that gives you it gives you protection defensively. It gives you more athleticism in the midfield, gives you playmaking everywhere. It helps you get your best 11 on the field. And it also allows Ian Frey and Jordi Alba to play higher up the pitch and to contribute offensively. And I think all of that would make Suarez a better player and Messi a better player. So that's what I would do. But I think Javier Mascherano is naturally a more conservative coach. And even when he does try and play offensively like he did tonight, the guys just aren't prepared for it because they haven't done it all season. So I think we're going to get a 4-4-2. Very basic, very conservative. And we're going to ask Lionel Messi to run the game and score 2 goals every game. Feels unfair, but it is what it is. Club coach says this wasn't a 1-off, it was a 2-off. Listen, like I said, they responded well. Last time this happened, they lost to Cincinnati 3-0, and they came back and beat the Red Bulls 5-1. So they play the LA Galaxy next week. The Galaxy have a ton of athleticism in transition. Not a ton of depth, but man, if I watch John McCarthy outplay Oscar Ustari, I'm going to have a problem. Especially if we trade Drake this week and then we watch John McCarthy outplay Oscar Ustari. Oh, man. JC says our defense is trash, but it's always been trash. It's our offense last season that picked up the slack. We're so flaccid this season. Yeah, we are so much worse offensively this season. It's just that Messi has played more and been great, and because he's a freakishly good talent. But like I think the only reason our offense doesn't look worse at numbers, it is worse, but it doesn't look significantly worse, is because Messi has played more games so far this season and contributed more than he did last year by virtue of being on the field more, right? No Copa America, no injury. They're not rotating as much. So Messi's on the field more, scoring more goals, and so the offense doesn't quite look as bad, but it's been much worse, without a doubt. Anonymous says, I think Messi's definitely going to play next Saturday against the Galaxy. We'll see. Listen, I would love it because I need him on the pitch against Tigres. And if he plays against Galaxy, he'll play against Tigres. So I would love that. Is the team tired, or did they think this game did not matter? No, I think they just got out physical and out athleted. And when things started going against them, they couldn't find a way to pull themselves up and through, and then they got dominated in the second half. It's not too dissimilar to what happened against Pumas on Wednesday night, where they were probably the worst team against Pumas in the first half, but in the second half they just dominated them. In the second, changed a few things. I think disoriented Pumas and then just crushed them, and there was nothing Pumas could do about it. USMNT Total Football says Miami players were gassed. It's just such an excuse that I just don't. I can't give that to them. Plenty of guys were being rotated in and out. That it's just not a good excuse. And again, this is what everyone said when we lost 3-0 to FC Cincinnati, and then 3 days later, same 11 or close to the same 11 went out and crushed the Red Bulls. So I just think it's just an excuse. It really is, and they would tell you that. And if a lot of teams played fine this weekend after playing 3 games in the last 2 weeks. I think that's just an excuse. Paul says the players are out of position. Yeah, like I said, Javier Mascherano likes his midfielders everywhere. USMNT Total Football says that many of Mascherano's decisions can be linked to the loss. Listen, fundamentally, we could trace almost everything that happens to the ideology of the coaching staff that they established back in November of last year, right? They decided to not bring back Matías Rojas. And you look at this team and you think Javier Mascherano wouldn't play him anyway. So it makes sense that they would let him go, but of course, or they would let him go. But you think about it and you remember Matías Rojas, and he was awesome. And so you can just tell by the decisions they made in the offseason, this is what they wanted. This was the ideology they thought they were getting into. This is what they recruited players towards. This is what they moved on other players in order to sort of have continuity in. And it's gross when you consider this is a Lionel Messi-led team and Suarez and all that. Like, it's just gross that they were allowed to do this, I think. Okay, USMNT Total Football says DePaul was gassed. If anyone has an excuse about being gassed, I will give it to Rodrigo DePaul. He did not have a preseason. He's been playing 90 minutes every single time he comes on here. So comes every single game so far. So I will give him a pass on this one. I'm sure the week off, a couple training sessions with the guys will definitely do him some good. Natalia says the team's passing makes me wonder if they ever do rondo in training. I think that's all they do. No, I'm kidding. I'm sure they have expansive training sessions. Jay says Messi would not have changed the outcome. Orlando wanted it more and were 3 to 4 steps ahead. All Orlando goals showed weak effort on part of Miami. Ball watching on goals 2, 3, and 4. Not only that, well, listen, here's the thing about Messi. He can give you a goal that can change the game, right? It's all about, it's a game of momentum, and moments change everything. And so Messi can provide that moment for you, and he's done it a ton this season. But certainly without the moment, Messi on the pitch wouldn't have changed how this went. Jerry says, disgusting. Mascherano did no adjustments at halftime. Our defensive schemes continue to be a disaster, and Alba has to play up front. Alba has to play up front. Allende sucks. Formation was off, and Mascherano needs to go. Well, certainly be interesting to put Jordi Alba up front as opposed to Tadeo Allende, but not sure I want to see that. Jerry says, this team will not win Leagues Cup nor MLS. It's totally disgusting. As a fan, it hurts. By the way, enough with this Messi BS. If Messi trained this week, then play him. Enough is enough. Well, to be clear, he did individual training, which has been the standard all season for players coming back from injury. He did not train with the team, and I think he only did his first training session on Saturday. So he was not healthy. I want to be clear about that. Just that he's sort of on the road back and not 2 weeks away or, an undisclosed amount of time back. Sean says, we never won in Orlando. 0-8 since MLS is back. Yeah. Sean says there's 21 of you in the chat, not subscribe. Guys, hit the subscribe button. Just do it right now. Just do it right now. Just do it right now. Just for funsies. Jerry says, this team's not beating teams like Cincy, Philly, or Orlando. It's disgusting. Sean says the graphics department works fast. Yes. Shout out to the graphics department. They do a great job. Lewis says it's the best IMCF pod. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. HDS says, I can just feel this season will be trophyless. This team just doesn't know how to build a capable team. Just messy independencia and vibes. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I think the scary thing is, I think the team's going to look pretty similar next year. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but I think Suarez is going to be back. I think there's a real chance. Let me rephrase it. I think there's a real chance that Suarez is going to be back. Like 50-50, maybe a little bit more than 50-50. I think Busquets will be back. I think Jordi Alba, he's under contract. He'll be back. DePaul will be the new DP. Messi will be the new DP. Hopefully they can sign another DP. Maybe they move on a couple U22s and replace them. But considering what this front office did with all of the young players they brought in, they really hit on 1 out of like 4 or 5. Gonzalo Lujan, I would say, is a bust of a transfer. Baltasar Rodriguez, it's tough because we haven't really seen him, but certainly so far you'd have to call that a bust. Alan Obando, same thing. Obviously Segovia is the big hit there, but it's just I don't know how you could have a ton of faith in the front office and specifically this coaching staff to bring in good players. Obviously, if you are looking at Rodrigo de Paul or Julian Alvarez or some crazy talented player like that, then it's easy to decide to go get that player, and it's hard to actually get them. But in terms of finding like value, that's hard, and I don't think these guys are particularly good at it. Alejandro says, love your podcast. Thank you so much. Honestly, guys, it's so kind of you to say, and I really do appreciate it. I know Saur does as well. We just try and say smart things, and sometimes we do it, and sometimes I'm sure we don't. Elmer says the good thing is that Cincinnati also lost today. Yeah, I think Philadelphia dropped points yesterday. I think they finished with a draw. So, but Inter Miami, they have 3 games in hand, and they're down 9 points on Philadelphia. So they have to win all their games in hand just to tie. And people are talking about fatigue and all that stuff, and it's going to be tough. I think if they can do something real in Leagues Cup, especially if they can beat Tigres and they can qualify for CONCACAF Champions Cup that way, it'll be a huge sort of weight lifted off their shoulders. But until then, it's like every game matters. Jay says, I think the players were upset they were made to take Brightline to Orlando. For those that don't know, the Brightline is the rail system that travels up the state of Florida. Solid Rock says Messi needs to rest and maybe play 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, I would agree with you. I just don't know if that's Messi's style. So Tunde says, what time on Wednesday will we be doing the episode on Drake versus Ustadi? I don't know. I usually text Saur in the morning of the day of, and then we just kind of decide a time from there. Alejandro says, can we stop signing friends of Messi? Sean says, who's going to recruit? No one in the front office knows MLS. Yeah, it's just one of the tragedies about this whole situation. Sean says Chris Henderson was one of the worst losses in organizational history. I just think, Tata Martino knew the league. He won the MLS Cup with Atlanta. And he was like a veteran and experienced coach. Like, he was a real coach. And Javier Mascherano is like it's a very real possibility he's never going to get another professional coaching job. And I know that sounds really harsh, but he got the first job because of nepotism, because he had a long history with the Argentine national team, and his connections. And he got this job because of nepotism. And from what I can gather, like, Argentina fans weren't particularly happy with his performance with the youth teams, and I don't think Inter Miami fans are particularly happy with him. If he gets fired after 1 year, like, how many opportunities is he actually going to get? Especially this one, because this is a hard one to really fail at because of how much talent Inter Miami has. So I'm sure he will, but I don't know. Tunde says, I heard Tigres won their last game 7-0. Any chance this goes really wrong? Or is all of this more likely an overreaction to the result? Like I said, Inter Miami bounced back the last time they lost big time. We played Tigres last year in the Leagues Cup in the second game. It was our second group stage game. And they won 2-1. They scored in the 96th minute. And that was, it wasn't an away game, but it was like Tigres had the higher seed, so they got to host it. That game was in Houston, so it wasn't an Inter Miami home game. And Campana had a penalty in the 74th minute. We equalized. It was 1-1, and then Tigres scored in the 84th minute. Oh, that was the Christoph. It's flooding back to me now. But I guess my point is it was a neutral site game, and they played a pretty even game last year. That was without Messi, I believe. Yeah, no Messi, no Suarez. Like that, here's the lineup. It was David Martinez, Toto Aviles, Yannick Bright, Jordi Alba, Chelo Weigand, Julian Gressel, Redondo, Robert Taylor, Matias Rojas, Leo Campana. That was the starting 11. And Drake in goal, if I didn't mention that. And they played them toe-to-toe in a neutral site. So I think the idea that they're going to get run over by Tigres is wrong, but not, I guess, out of the realm of possibility. Solid Rock says we need a new goalkeeper. Juan says, outplayed, outmatched, outclassed. You made your bed of dreams. Now lay on it. Good night. Fair. That's very fair. Way to end it. Alejandro says we need a 9. Suarez ain't it. Anonymous says Tigres is probably the best Liga MX team right now, especially with Angel Correa. Yeah, isn't Toluca having a great season? And I think Tigres was probably the worst draw we could have gotten, but it's not so insurmountable that we can't make up for it, in my opinion. Amr says Orlando was just too good and too fast for Inter Miami. Yeah, definitely. Sean says everyone was so high on new signings every single window. Stop falling for it. I would just say Tata Martino got all of them, almost all of them right. He really did. Like, Inter Miami's hit rate under the Tata Martino era was so good. And some of them are, like, obvious, right? We signed Lionel Messi. You get Busquets. You get Jordi Alba. Those are obviously great signings, but easy to predict they'll be good. But, the other three signings were Diego Gomez, Facundo Farias, and Toto Aviles. Like, I think those three were much better than some of the U22s we've gotten lately. And then last year, Luis Suarez, obviously that's the easy signing, but Julian Gressel certainly had a positive impact in this team. Matthias Rojas was really good. Chelo Weigand was really a nice player when he was on a super cheap contract. Now that he's on a big contract, it's not so nice. And then David Martinez in the summer window. You compare that to what we've seen with Javier Mascherano, and it's clearly better under Tata Martino. And I also think Tata Martino did a good job of integrating the players he inherited with the players he brought in. And I think Javier Mascherano came in, and again, Javier Mascherano has never been a club coach before. And he came in and said, I don't want this goalkeeper, despite the fact that he was voted co-captain by his own teammates. He decided, okay, Christoph, Frede, get out of here. I'm going to bring in my guys. Those guys, well, they're not fast or tall or athletic or particularly good on the ball, but they're my guys, so I'm going to bring them in. Like, it's just, the decision-making's crazy, and it just shows a lot of arrogance. And there was a bunch of people in the front office that weren't used to the league and also didn't know what they should be doing. Tunde says the Seattle team has been really good for a while now. Seattle. Club World Cup really did wonders for them, despite the fact that it should have crushed their confidence. I don't know what Seattle's has to do with any of this, but good for them. Jay says, unfortunately, this looks to be the defense we have to ride into the playoffs. Doesn't look like there will be additions. Time's running out. A worse season than 2024. No supporter shield, no trophies. Yeah, I really think that it's going to come down to if Messi can carry them through the MLS playoffs. And he can. He has the talent, not just him, but like he can carry the whole team through this. But it's going to be hard. And if it doesn't happen, it's going to be an unbelievable waste of a Lionel Messi season. And like Javier Mascherano and his coaching staff deserve to get fired for that. And maybe people in the front office too. But we'll see if this happens. JC says Messi's on track to have his first trophyless season since ever. And then Nader says since 2019-2020. Tunde says, didn't really see this game, so perhaps I'm not in the best place to speak, but I think Bright's best game this season was against Columbus. He was a monster in that game. Yeah, maybe. Listen, well, he scored a goal, so go watch the goal. It's a really nice goal. It was his first goal of his professional career, which is awesome, and you guys know that we have a soft spot. I have a soft spot for Yannick Bright. So that was awesome, but I just thought he was much more clinical and precise with his ball progression. And then the defensive, the takeaways were there, being in the right spot at the right time. Like, all of that was still there. So I thought this was like a next level game for Yannick. And he's just gotten better and better. So I think we'll see more of this. But, to get that breakthrough on the goal, it's just really nice. And in a game that ended like that, it's nice to have a positive moment to take away from it. Pepto says the offensive problems have been showing all season. It's pretty much been Messi magic or bust. Both Mascherano and the front office have blame. I agree, 100%. Joe Kerr says, luckily we have a few games in hand. We aren't behind by much, but an Orlando City loss hurts. Yeah, listen, I've said this over and over, but the schedule gets easier towards the end of the season. The last game of the season we play Nashville, but I think that's the only other team we play. Like, I think Orlando City was the last good team we play, aside from Nashville. I think every other team is going to be worse than Orlando City in the MLS. Seattle, Charlotte are maybe the best of the best, but there's a lot of non-playoff teams on the schedule. And, of course, we'll play better teams in the Leagues Cup. But, like, they can make a run, and other teams will lose games, but it's going to be tight. Even if they do well, it's going to be tight. Pepto says Miami have one winger and one striker, essentially. Telling you guys, don't sleep on Ryan Saylor as a striker. We saw it for 3 minutes in the preseason, and he scored a goal. Sean says, remember when our fan base hated McCarthy, too? No, that's what I'm saying. Someone told me, I tweeted about Drake Calendar yesterday. Someone was like, you can't win the MLS Cup with a shaky goalkeeper. And I was just laughing because John McCarthy has won 2 of the last 3 MLS Cups. And I know one he was like came on during the game as a backup. But last year with the Galaxy, man, won the MLS Cup. David says, friendly reminder, 4-1. David, I hope if you're an Orlando City fan, I hope you're having a great night. You deserve it. Your team played phenomenal, and I remember how good I felt after we beat you guys 5-0. So I hope you enjoy the evening. You deserve it. Sean says Alex Freeman had played his way into the USMNT, and it showed tonight. Like I said in the pregame show, I think he's going to be in. I think he's going to be in Europe by the end of the window. So that might have been his last game at Orlando City, genuinely. Jerry says Mascherano's press conference made it sound like this was the players. Sorry, but this is a top-down failure on building a team to please Messi and little with building a real team. Yeah, listen, the players did play poorly today. But obviously the circumstances and context of how you end up in this situation goes back long before tonight. Sean says the first 15 minutes that media gets to see is only rondos, talking about whether they do rondos in practice. Yeah, it's really an interesting dynamic to this team because you have 5 players that don't need to do anything generally, and they come out really good. And then you have like 10 players that need a ton of time in training and a ton of time in the film room to develop. And I just wonder if maybe last year we spent too much time in the film room and some of the older players were upset about it. And this year we're not spending enough time in the film room, and it's costing some of our younger players like development opportunities. Now I am just speculating. I don't know anything. I'm not saying anything. As a matter of fact, I'm just speculating because I think the awareness of some of our players has been. I haven't seen any progression this year, and some players have gotten worse, I think. Sean says we are losing Suarez and Boosie. I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. Twinda says make the full team geriatric FC. Yeah. Nader says Messi can't just start versus Tigres while he hasn't played a minute in 2 weeks. He has to get some minutes versus LA Galaxy. Yeah, guys, I don't know. Messi's going to play if he wants to. Natalia says Scaloni for Argentina has built a team that's not Messi dependent. And Messi has no complaints. Last game with Argentina, he asked to be subbed out since they were changing tactics. So this is not a Messi problem here. I don't want to say anything now that it's late at night. But here's what I will say. Lionel Messi is the most important thing to Inter Miami. Yes, true. Making sure he stays in Inter Miami absolutely should be priority number one. And I understand fans thinking that's dumb. I totally understand fans thinking that's dumb. But I also understand from an ownership perspective, making sure you keep Messi is ultra important. And I think a lot of times when you're Messi, not Messi, but if you're a superstar like that, people just start doing things to try and make you happy, even if you ask for it or not. Like they try and sort of get in your good graces. So I think, I'm just going to leave it at that. Obviously, a lot of decisions were made to make Messi happy, and I hope he is. Signs a new contract, and we win the next 4 MLS Cups. That would be awesome. Michael says Brighton Frey would probably move on next season. Better opportunities outside of Miami. Man, that would be a tragedy, and I don't want to think about something so sad this late at night. Sean says top 3 in Leagues Cup, the Supporter Shield, or MLS Cup is the only way into CONCACAF Champions Cup. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. I don't think you can rely on the MLS Cup at all. It's too random, and Inter Miami has not shown that they're going to thrive in that environment. So I think you have to try and get it in the Supporter Shield by just winning games. And in order to do that, in order to guarantee you're going to do that, you have to be top 3 in the Supporter Shield race. In fact, it might even be, well, to guarantee it, you have to be top 3 in the Supporter Shield race. Now, if you can qualify through the Leagues Cup before then it certainly takes a weight off your shoulders. But the CONCACAF Champions Cup qualification is not guaranteed right now, and I don't think enough people are worried about it when they should be. JC says, I'm 100% on board with Suarez's return. He'd make an excellent water boy. Listen, guys, it's not up to you or me. So, I don't know what to tell you. I would have guessed Suarez was going to retire at the end of the season. I still think it's possible, but if he decides he wants to play another year, Miami will bring him back. And it will look a lot like last year. I'm sorry, a lot like this year, where he plays every single game, if Javier Mascherano is the coach. But what I will say is a new coach may be different. We saw last year, Suarez came off, Campana came on. Campana played a healthy number of minutes last season, provided a ton of goals, and helped this team achieve everything they were trying to achieve. So it's a Javier Mascherano thing as much as it is a Luis Suarez thing. And I also think Suarez would be better if they played a system that suited him. Nader says Tigres' goalkeeper Guzman is a good goalkeeper, and he's also Messi's former friend. Nahuel Guzman. Oh, this is the guy. Is this the guy? Nahuel Guzman? I can't remember. Anyways, I don't know, man. He's also 39, but he's also still at Tigres, so that makes me feel a lot better. I don't know what to tell you. I think the goalkeeping situation wasn't handled well, and Inter Miami's worse because of it. Michael says, where do we think Drake is headed? I don't know. I don't even want to speculate on it. Jose Armando said this season is a successful season for Inter Miami, even if they didn't win any trophies. I'd love to hear his explanation for that. He said, okay. Nader says, Jose said just because they made it out of Group Club World Cup, it's a successful season. It's a weird take considering he said 2024 and 2023 were epic failures. Oh, I couldn't disagree anymore. The Club World Cup was awesome. Awesome. So much fun, and we really went out of our way to enjoy every minute of it. But it's almost irrelevant to every other thing that we do as a club. It just is. Sean says you need to get Alex Winley on here for a podcast to talk about some of the practice stuff. We did have Alex on the pod for our big preseason preview, but we did not talk to her enough. That was a lot of fun, but we only talked to people for 20 minutes, and we realized as we were doing it that every single person deserved an hour or two because there were some great conversations. But I'm sure we'll have her on again. Sean says, or Franco. Listen, Franco's the one that wants that, Franco's the one that started this whole Ustari versus Drake conversation that's going to, I'm sure, continue for the next week and a half. Tunde says, a weird metric. The Club World Cup was nice and all, but the MLS Cup has always been the priority and will determine whether this season is a failure or not. Yeah, I think there's only 3 ways Inter Miami can have a successful season. Win the MLS Cup, win the Club World Cup, and be the best team in CONCACAF. And they could all happen, or none of them could happen, but I'm sorry. They could all happen, or only one of them could happen, but like if you don't do any of those 3, there's just no way you can have Lionel Messi and call it a successful season. I don't get that. Lewis says, I'm making my drive home from Orlando better. Guys, I'm really sorry for everyone that went. The performance was not. I feel really bad for that. Tunde says, they're starting to build momentum in a really nice time. I think this is related to Seattle. Natalia says, isn't it crazy that we're almost into the playoffs? Mascherano still has not figured out his best 11. It is crazy, yes. Maybe not even that he figured out his best 11, but he doesn't have like a really well-defined depth chart. But actually, I think he would say he does have a well-defined depth chart. It's just that we disagree with some of his picks, which I guess is fine in soccer. But and you defer to the coach because the coach is the one that's going to get fired if it doesn't work out. So, and all we get to do is come on here and say either he was right or we told you so. Nader says if Suarez loses some weight, he will get better and Inter Miami will win MLS Cup. Tunde says, I might lose it if they bring Suarez back, Neymar joins, and Mascherano stays. The attack would just lose all athleticism to resurrect the MSN one final time. They'd even sub on less too. I'm not suggesting that's what I would do. I think you should prepare for something like that to happen mentally. If that's going to cause you real stress, I think you're better off realizing it's a possibility and coming to terms with that, and then if you don't want it, hoping it doesn't happen, then going about like that's an impossibility and then being shocked if it does. Natalia says we don't have a statement win yet without Messi magic. This season, certainly. Well, I don't know. I don't want to go through every game right now. Lots of talk of Neymar. Sean says, do you think the supporters groups would call out Mascherano like they did Neville? It's too late at night for this conversation. I don't want to get into it. Tunde says the rest of the season needs prayers. Every playoff game will be 50-50, and we pray Messi to deliver us from Lord Lujan and Meister Mascherano. Tunde, I think you put it perfectly right there. I think that's exactly what it's going to be. When we come up against good teams, it's going to be 50-50, and 50-50 can go your way. But, yeah. I think considering the talent on this roster, it's pretty frustrating to end up in a situation where, like every other MLS playoff team, where it's like somewhere between 60-40 and 50-50. Inter Miami should feel like they're going into every playoff series or game with like an 80+% chance to win. And they just don't. Nader says, I have a feeling even if Inter Miami didn't win anything, Mascherano will stay for next season. I think Messi wants Mascherano to stay. I hope so. I mean, I hope not. And Pepto says, how is Jardinet, Andre Jardinet, the Club America coach? He doesn't watch at Liga MX. Here's what I will say about Jardinet. He's actually earned jobs. Like, people have watched his performance as a coach and said, I want that guy for my team. And he's won trophies. And I want that for my team. I want a guy that's actually a coach. And I don't think Javier Mascherano is actually a coach. You know what this reminds me of? A couple years ago, Cristiano Ronaldo was at Manchester United. And they fired Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the middle of the season. and they hired Ralph Ragnick, who hadn't been a manager for like 15 years. He was like a sporting director. He was a manager like 10, 12 years before that, and kind of successful in Germany. But he had been sort of an off-field role for like a decade. And Ronaldo was just like, this guy's not even a real coach. I kind of feel like we're going to look back at Mascherano and say something similar. Nader says, I think Mascherano will stay until CONCACAF Champions Cup next season. If he wins, he'll stay, and if they get eliminated, they'll kick him out. I just think you can't waste that much time. You can't waste that much of Messi's era at Inter Miami on a coach who has proven nothing. Like, that's the thing about Javier Mascherano. There's nothing about his history that suggests he's going to get better or fix it or improve or win anything or he needs time. There's no reason to think that he's going to get better. He has no track record at all. And so it's like there's no reason to waste more time on him. You've seen him now for 8 months, and if he doesn't pull it out exactly like you told him he has to at the beginning of his tenure, then he should go. There's nothing to suggest he's going to get better. And I think I don't want to make this a Mascherano thing, but he has some real flaws that seem like it will be very difficult for him to become a great coach, in my opinion. I don't want to dive into that because it's a 45-minute conversation, but we've done it before, and there's just no reason to do that other than you want to play with your friends and winning doesn't matter. And if winning doesn't matter, then there's a whole other conversation to have about this Inter Miami group. But I choose to believe they do care about winning. So. Natalia says he goes even if we don't qualify to CONCACAF Champions Cup. The problem is it's too late for that. It's too late at that point. Tunde says Ralph Ragnick had been a coach, though. He was a German legend. I know this. I agree with you. But that's just sort of what went through my mind. And I think we might come back to that. Nader says there's no way nobody will coach Messi. No way he will agree to Jardinet. He just wants his friends around him. Well, and that's the conversation about how badly they want to win. And like the whole thing about Inter Miami going with Messi is that you do it to win. And so if they're just using your club to hang out with their friends and they don't care about winning, and I'm not saying they don't care about, I'm not saying that at all. I don't think that's true. But if that was the case, then that's, you'd understand a fan revolt. I don't think that's true, though, to be clear. Sean says there was so many other coaches that the Moss brothers could have gotten. They literally said money isn't an issue. I don't know if you guys remember, but they hired Javier Mascherano like 3 days after Tata announced he was resigning. And they said something like we used AI to come up with candidates, and we had 3 candidates. And it's like none of those candidates have ever come to light. No one knows who they could have been. And somehow they ended up on Javier Mascherano, who was not particularly, as far as I can tell, not particularly impressive in his only coaching job with the Argentine U21 and Olympic teams. And now he's coaching Lionel Messi in the MLS as the favorites with absolutely no club coaching experience whatsoever. I don't know. Nader says Mascherano was sacked. He will only be replaced by another Messi friend. Well, listen, we talked about this a couple days ago. Fernando Gago, the coach of Club Necaxa, and I'm not suggesting Club Necaxa is like a special team, but Fernando Gago, we just played against him for Necaxa. He was teammates with Messi for the Argentine national team. He had 61 caps between 2007 and 2017. He knows Messi. He coached at Boca Juniors, Racing Club, Guadalajara. Like, he's a real coach. And I'm not suggesting he's the guy, but what I am suggesting is there's probably 15, 20 coaches out there that have some sort of connection to Messi that are real coaches, that have proven something in their career to earn jobs and to prove they have some bare minimum talent level as a coach. Now, I'm not suggesting Gago is the guy or anything like that, but like there are people out there, and to suggest that they're not because you can't think of them, or the only guy you can think of is Xavi or whatever, it's nonsensical. I had never heard of this guy until we coached against him last week, and he played 60 games with Messi. So they're out there. They're out there. Oh, well, here we go. The very next comment. Nader says they should just bring Gago from Necaxa. He knows Messi long before Mascherano, and he's more experienced. Oh, man. Good timing. That's my bad, Nader. Josue says Tata Martino has a worse track record with Messi. We need to stop the Tata glaze. Yeah, listen. I think that Tata is a real coach. Probably even like a good coach, but not a great coach. And so if you're Inter Miami and you want to go out and reach for a great coach, I'm totally fine with that. That makes a lot of sense. Clearly, Javier Mascherano's not that. So if you're going to move on from Tata, who's a better coach than Javier Mascherano, because you didn't think Tata was good enough, then you should absolutely move on from Javier Mascherano. Listen, I told you guys a couple months ago, after they lost to Orlando City 3-0, they had lost, or rather they had won 1 out of 9 games, or I guess 8 games after the Orlando City game. They had lost 6 out of 8, 1 win, 1 draw. And I said they should fire him. That was the worst stretch Inter Miami had since Phil Neville got fired. So it's like, that is a kind of stretch that fired coaches in the past in Inter Miami. And listen, Messi instead did an interview after the Orlando City game. Sort of, I think, took a lot of the, he didn't take the heat, but he took a lot of the pressure off of everyone else and he put it on himself. And by the way, he delivered. Had that great free kick goal that helped us get a point against Philadelphia the next week. And we kind of pulled ourselves into form heading into the Club World Cup. Had a great Club World Cup. And the results have been pretty good since then. But obviously tonight is a reminder that we're not undeniable like I think we should be with a Lionel Messi-led team. Kirat says we were physically abused. Hard to argue with that. And it was a point in the last 15 minutes where they were just having fun with us. Excuse me. Adamus says Suarez is finished. Yeah, he was really poor. Tunde says problem is which coach will you recommend? Here's what I will say. And I've tried to say this a lot over the past 8 months since Tata was fired, but you and I aren't paid to find a coach for Inter Miami. Like if that was our job, I think we would find good coaching candidates in 3 days. Right? If you spent 8 hours a day looking for coaches, you'd find them all, and it would take you 3 days to come up with a comprehensive list. It'd take you another 3 days to reach out to their agent. And it would take you another 3 days to sort of gauge which one you want to confirm or you want to commit to, and if they're willing to commit to you. Like, that's what you do when you work 40, 50 hours a week trying to build a team. And hopefully a lot of these sporting people are doing 70, 80 hours a week. The front office, like the coaching aspect and the technical aspect. Like, they should be working that hard, watching film, not just on players and potential players and the youth prospects and potential targets, but also coaching staffs. And I think it would take about 20 hours to have a really good comprehensive list and the ability to just contact their agents to see if they would be interested. But 20 hours is a long time for some of us that are just, if we're just fans. That said, maybe in the offseason, if Javier Mascherano does get fired, we'll do, a scaled down version of that. Kirat says we need size and speed on the back line. I agree, Kirat, and that's part of the reason why I don't love the current front office or coaching staff, because they thought Maxi Falcone and Gonzalo Lujan were the answer, and they have neither size nor speed. Says, I have 3 coaches in mind who could have been better, but I am AI. Natalia says Peter Vermes still available. You don't want Peter Vermes. Sarakti says we lost 1 match and the players had an awful showing. Everyone praised Mascherano last match when the 11 came out, and when the 11 came out. Need to be more level-headed. It's football. Yeah, listen, I don't think we cried and screamed about how everyone needs to get traded or transferred out. But, I don't know. I also think a 4-1 crushing to your rival is probably worthy of some. JC says, no way they used AI. No, well, my guess is they always knew they were going to get Javier Mascherano. And they just said that for some reason because they wanted to make it look like they didn't already know they were going to hire Javier Mascherano before Tata Martino left. They wanted to say they had some sort of search for him, but came across dumb, if I'm being honest. But maybe they did. I don't know. Nader says Gago from the Necaxis coach played with Messi in 2004, and they won the Under-20 World Cup in 2005. If Mascherano gets sacked, they will get Gago for sure. You can tell Messi was happy to see him. There you go. Tunda says we need team speed across the entire team. I hear you. That's just not going to happen as long as Messi's here. Like, Messi's always going to surround himself with his friends, at least a couple, and his friends aren't going to be athletic or fast. They're going to be 30 plus. So I'd love that, but I just don't necessarily expect it. By the way, I wanted to mention Andre Jardinet, the coach for Club America. He's won a couple titles at Club America. I think they're kind of tailing off now. I think we're getting towards the end of the Jardinet era. At Club America, it doesn't quite have the sort of oomph to get them back. I think he's going to coach in the MLS next season. I think. I don't know if it's going to be at Miami, but we were linked to him at one point when things were going really bad. JC says, I can't take this club seriously anymore if they use AI to make hiring decisions. Sean says, Martin Palmero, Neil Lennon, etc., better coaches. Yeah, I think the thing is you want a coach that's actually been a coach before. You'd love a coach that's been a coach of the MLS before. And I also am not, I'll be honest, this is just my conspiracy theory. Not conspiracy, this is just my thought process. I don't know that you need another coach that's friends with Messi. I know that's sort of, I'm sure a lot of you think I'm dumb for saying that, but if they move on from Javier Mascherano, I think that's going to be hard on Messi to say, you're fired to your friend and to, maybe potentially ruin his coaching career. So maybe they would set him up with some other job and everyone would feel good about it. But if that ends in a way that kind of destroys his relationship with Javier Mascherano, I don't know if Messi wants to go around ruining his relationship with his friends because they weren't good enough to be the coach of Inter Miami. That said, whoever would be the coach is certainly going to be subservient to what Messi wants to do. Obviously, that's true, but I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking that. Josue says, I think the MLS is still not a job many coaches will want to be a part of. Many foreign coaches. I don't know. I don't know. Nader says that Thierry Henry would be a better striker alongside Messi than Suarez. Or Thierry Henry can be coach. He did better in the Olympics than Masche. Sean says there are people in the organization that have a book of coaches. Yeah, they should. It's just those weren't the people making the decisions. Which is why, as fans, they exist. By the way, Thierry Henry, not a great coach. Just so we're clear. Sean says Wilfred Nancy at Columbus is a product of the Henry coaching tree. Pepto says, Aviles isn't even rated over Lujan. It's so sad. Guys, that's the one that's going to drive me insane. And it can't be because of what they're doing on the field. It can't be because of their production, because Gonzalo Lujan is allowing more goals then Aviles is getting yellow cards. It just has to be that Javier Mascherano promised Lujan and Maxi Falcon that they would play a lot. And coaches don't want to go back on their word. But as a young coach, you just don't get to keep your promises like that. Or you're going to end up getting fired, which I'll be honest, I think that's where this is heading. So I don't know what to tell you. He's going to die with his guys, or he's going to thrive with his guys. But Natalia says, you think they could be waiting for Pochettino after the World Cup? I would love to have Mauricio Pochettino at Inter Miami. I think he will be a coach in the Premier League after the World Cup. And rightfully, because I think he's going to be making $10 million. And I don't think Inter Miami should be paying a coach $10 million a year to be the coach. Ashley says Aviles is one of our best center backs. I don't care what anyone says. I think on our current roster, the best center backs are Noah Allen and Toto Aviles. And then Ian Frey, probably third. Maxi Falcone occasionally has phenomenal performances, but it's not consistent enough to let him start big games, in my opinion. Natalia says it's almost midnight, that I need to sleep. Sean says I could see Jardine at one of the LA teams. Yeah, maybe. Nader says he wonders why Di Maria joined. Why he didn't join. I'd be interested in that because I think Inter Miami went after him a couple times. I think they went after him a couple times and he wasn't interested. Maybe there's like a lack of respect for the MLS from his perspective. I don't know, but I think Inter Miami really wanted him a couple times and they couldn't make it happen. Today says Chad doesn't want me to sleep. Guys, I will say I'm 1 hour behind these. I'm in Central Time, so it's only 11 o'clock, although I'm sure my girlfriend wants to go to bed. Nader says, I remember it was reported that he had no interest whatsoever joining Miami. If he had at least played 6 months, then joined Rosario Central. Yeah, listen, we could have gotten him last summer, but he decided to go back to Benfica. And that's fine, but we went after him multiple times, and he rejected us all the time. So it's okay. Kirat says, does anyone miss Christoph? Christoph is a better player than Gonzalo Lujan. I'm 1,000% serious about that. He was better on the ball, better distributor of the ball. He was better in the box, his awareness in the box, better on set piece defense. He was just slow, and he was asked to play high up the pitch, and he wasn't able to do that. But he had real traits to him. It's just that it wasn't a good stylistic fit. Lots of people saying Pochettino sucks. Well, listen, Pochettino has been, I think, really bad for the U.S. men's national team. But I think he'd be way better than Javier Mascherano. I don't know what to tell you guys. This is someone that I think Messi would respect, who I do think is a good coach. But I think one of the things about him in the U.S. men's national team is he's not taking the job seriously enough. And maybe he would do the same at Inter Miami. But again, I think in his sleep he could be a better coach than Javier Mascherano. Sean says Poch is worse than Berhalter, and that hurts me to say. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I would go that far. But it would be an interesting conversation, I'm sure. Ashley says, I'll never forget Aviles' long ball to Facundo Farias in the LAFC game in 2023, where he scored an insane goal. Why am I remembering that as a Busquets set piece, where he takes the quick set piece and he pushes it forward to Facundo Farias and they score a quick goal? And then Campana had a goal in the game. Maybe it's the other goal that we scored. We won that game 3-1, though. It was fun. Kira says, you see any new players coming before the transfer window closes? I think it's probably 40% chance we add players. I think it's less than 50-50. Not impossible, but potentially. Nader says this is probably the longest live stream in the history of the channel. Guys, we did a 3-hour pregame before the Al Ali game to open the Club World Cup. And I will tell you, that was pretty hard. That was pretty hard. Later that night, after we had watched the game and after we were doing the post-game reaction, probably similar to right now, my eyes were just bloodshot from all the screen time in front of the camera. Sean says Central Time. No, I live in Kansas. I'm doing my time in Kansas right now, and I will just leave it at that. Ashley says, I miss Kamal Miller. Kamal Miller would be the best center back on this team. He was good on the ball. I wouldn't say athletic, but he was quick enough, certainly quicker than like a Maxi Falcone or Gonzalo Lujan or Christoph. And he was pretty good of a pretty good ball distributor. I thought it was a mistake to move him on, but I can understand them trying to upgrade on, just like Drake. It's just the same as Drake. He was a good player. Kamal Miller was a good player. And if you think you can upgrade on him, fine, go for it. But they couldn't. And that's, I think, the frustration. And it's the same thing with Drake. It's like, okay, Drake's a good player. He's not a superstar. I think maybe if he took a similar step from 2022 to 2023, or rather 2023 to 2024, as he did from 2022 to 2023, like he could have had a Matt Turner type like stardom. He didn't. He regressed a little bit in 2024 for sure. And so he went from like really good in 2023 to like pretty good in 2024. And if you wanted to go out and get great, I'm fine with that because, again, ultimately the prize is to win the MLS Cup. But they didn't, and I think they settled in like a really gross way. And I think it's a shame how it's all ending, but it is what it is. Tunis says, I don't think Poch sucks. He was great at Southampton and Tottenham and even Espanyol. Pepto's saying at least Mascherano's not playing. Messi is a DM. Oh, man, is that something? Sean, who's AVB? You're going to have to tell us. Oh, he'll never leave Porto. Who's AVP? AVP. Nader says he asked ChatGPT if they should fire Mascherano. He told me Mascherano is the coach of Argentina's under 23, not Inter Miami. My goodness. Ashley says, I think calendars started dipping when his daughter was born, which is understandable. He just seemed exhausted. Pepto says, isn't there rumors they're going after a new goalkeeper? Like, I think they're not going to get it over the line. And they've already given a contract to Ustari for next year, and he's not on a cheap contract. You can't have two goalkeepers on big contracts like that. So I have heard rumors that they're going after a new goalkeeper, but I don't think it's going to come to fruition. As far as calendar, this is just my opinion. I think Drake was so good in 2023, and he was, I think, maybe 25 at the time. So he's going into his age 26 season. And this is speculation, totally speculation. He was going into his age 26 season. He's that's still pretty young for a goalkeeper. And I think he wanted to work on some of the things that he's weak at. Distribution of the ball, coming out for crosses, being more of a sweeper. And I think Tata Martino worked with him on that and tried to help him with that. And it didn't go well. And I think there was maybe a loss of confidence. But I also think the real thing about Drake Callender is we were so good in 2024. We were firing on all cylinders that the few things we could complain about, we hyper-focused on. And so we made it seem like our center backs are terrible and our goalkeeper is not good enough because that was the only issue. Like, that was the only thing stopping us from being perfect, right? maybe a little bit of health issues here and there, right? But we were just firing on all cylinders that we were nitpicking every little deficiency. And this year, everything is so much worse across the board that it's like, it doesn't feel like the goalkeeping situation is as bad, but it is. And I think that's just a psychology. Again, last year, people cried and screamed hell about the defense. And Christoph and Nico Frede and Totavis and all these guys, they cried hell. And it's like that defense was statistically better than this defense, even though we play a more conservative style. But people don't talk about generally. I mean, I do. I talk about Lujan this way, but people don't talk about our defense generally as if it's as bad as it was last year. But it's worse. We're giving up more goals a game, and we're doing that despite playing a more defensive style. But people don't talk about it like they did last year, and it's just because our perspective of how big of an issue things are has completely changed because we're not as good as we were last year. Sarakti's calling it a night, and I'm sure I will too. Ashley says, I know he ghosted a lot, but I wish Matthias Rojas didn't chase the money because I'd take him back yesterday. That's not... I guess we'll never know for sure what happened, but they had the option to keep Matthias Rojas, and they chose not to. And I don't know if he's been a smashing success at River Plate. So it would have been nice to keep him, but you look at this team, and I don't think Javier Mascherano would have used him anyway. So who knows? Okay, guys, 2 hours and 7 minutes. Oh, my goodness. I'm calling it there. I hope you guys have a lovely night. Not as good as it would have been if we had won, but hopefully we can bounce back with a big result next weekend. Guys, we'll be back on Wednesday we'll be back tomorrow to break this game down, and we will see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.